For those of you who don't know me, which is probably a lot of you watching this, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I have 4 children. And doing all of that within itself is expensive. Hell, just being a single person in the world can be expensive, right, in general. So I'm not the person that needs to tell you that video gaming alongside of all that is going to be very painful to your wallet. But maybe it doesn't have to be. And what I want to do today is explore some of the options that exist to, maybe make that a little cheaper, but still give you a very good overall experience. Before we get started though, the only thing I'd ask of you to do is just drop a like on the video. That's it. It really helps me out more than you could possibly imagine, so I'd greatly appreciate if you just click the like button. When I started playing games, I was a kid and I had all the time in the world, but I didn't have money. And now I'm at a point in my life where I have a ton of money, well, not really, but comparatively anyway, but not a whole lot of time. Like I said, I have kids, right? I'm a father. That takes up a lot of time. I also have a full-time job. Now, while I've been fortunate enough to compact those 40 hours a week, right, into just a few days, that still doesn't leave a lot of time on the table to, do everything I want, right? You see a lot of games behind me, and I don't get to play all of those, unfortunately. I love collecting, which is a side hobby of mine, but all in all, I have to pick and choose how I play my games, and I have to do that in a budget-friendly manner. I don't get to just go lay $70 down on every new game that comes out. So I've had to find ways to make that an easier process for me without feeling like I'm missing out. Now, real quick, that is one big contributor, is the fear of missing out, or FOMO. And this is something that can hit us pretty hard in certain circumstances. Now, if you're able to look past the FOMO and wait until a sale, more power to you. I'm able to do that most of the time, but there's always that one game that you just can't wait for. For example, Spider-Man 2 is coming up, and I'm not going to be able to wait. I love Spider-Man. It's one of my favorite superheroes, so definitely going to be getting that day one. But with that said, assuming that you can fight your FOMO a little better than I can, I think there's a lot of ways to save, a pretty penny when it comes to gaming in general. Now, to start, there are 3 factors that go into gaming as a hobby. Number 1 is the console or system or the platform of choice, right? Whether you have just one, whether you have multiple, I think that is an important factor. Number 2 is the games that you play, right? I mean, obviously, if you're only interested in one game, well, that makes your life pretty easy. But if you want to have a good variety of games, well, then, you gotta get a little more creative now, don't you? And number 3 is how you access these games. Some of us don't care about the whole physical versus digital or service versus ownership, but if that matters to you, that is a factor, and I don't think that is something you should sacrifice necessarily in order to have an experience that fits your budget. Now, the first thing I want to break down is the platform, the console, or whatever your choice is to play these games on. Me personally, I am a console gamer, so I don't really dive into the whole PC gaming side of things, and from my understanding, that can be a cheaper alternative, right? You build one rig, and then the Steam kind of just carries you the rest of the way. Now, that's great, but a lot of us don't have the cash up front to lay down on a $700 to $900 computer. So let's look at a few more budget-friendly options. The first system I always recommend when somebody says, I want to play video games, but I don't want to spend a lot of money. Well, the Nintendo Switch Lite, ironically, is a very easy way to go. You can play some popular titles on it like Fortnite, Rocket League, Apex, even Overwatch 2. Now, you'll be making a huge sacrifice in performance, but at the end of the day, you're still getting to play the game. And the best part is any progress you make, I guess outside of Apex though, because they haven't figured it out yet, but any progress you make will carry over when you are able to upgrade to a better console. Now, of course, the only downside to the Nintendo Switch Lite is it is a handheld system, right? You're not going to be able to play on a TV. The controls and the overall form factor might not be the best scenario for playing a game like Apex or, Fortnite, because it is a small display. The control sticks, right, the joysticks on the system are not that great. And overall, it is a very, very compromised experience. But at the end of the day, you can buy a pre-owned Switch Lite for around $150. So if you're just interested into getting into playing some games with your friends, It's not a bad way to go. Now, if you want something a little more up to speed, I would easily recommend getting an Xbox Series S. This is a age-old saying at this point, and it's kind of sad considering it's only 3 years old, but the Series S, and paired alongside with Game Pass, is the best value in gaming. You can't really get much cheaper than that. The compromises are very minimal. You're able to hook up to any display you have, as long as it obviously supports HDMI, and with access to the free-to-play games from the Microsoft Store alongside a simple subscription to Game Pass, you'll be living pretty good with the amount of game selection that you'll have. I have a friend personally that only plays a game called War Thunder. And that's pretty much it. That's all he plays. And he plays on his PS4 Pro. But he has been complaining about those load times. So in that situation, I would just say get the Series S because it's fairly cheap. You can find those pre-owned for around $200 to $250, depending on where you look. And that, along with your progress transferring over from your PlayStation, because that's another benefit. A lot of games nowadays do support, again, cross-play, cross-progression, etc. It makes it a really easy transition if really all you're playing are those free-to-play titles. Again, except for Apex, because EA hates you. Now, as I said, there are other alternatives. As I mentioned, my friend is playing on a PS4 Pro, and that is a completely viable way to go as well. A lot of the modern games that people are playing today are still operating on a PS4 or Xbox One. So if you wanted to go spend, $75 to $100 on a used Xbox One, I mean, that's perfectly viable too. You'll be able to play the latest and greatest from Call of Duty at the moment, Fortnite and Apex and Overwatch and War Thunder and whatever else there is that is free to play. I know that Xbox specifically just stopped supporting the platform, but there is still a large library to get behind, and games are getting cheaper and cheaper as we move further into this current generation with the Series X and S. Same goes with the PS4. PS4 games, there is no short supply of, and the console is very much capable in today's day and age. Now again, this situation only applies if you haven't upgraded yet, or maybe you're new to gaming, whatever the case may be. I think that it's important to note that last gen systems are very much a viable option to get into gaming on the cheap. The next thing to look at would be the kind of games that you're interested in playing. If you are always concerned with the latest and greatest, having the next game that everyone else is playing available to you day one, then the situation gets a little more difficult. But even with that, you can still have a good time. I think one thing that matters the most is maybe waiting a month. Right? Just that 1 month alone could be enough to wait until the game hits a decent sale, right? Might go from $70 down to $55. May not sound like much, but over the course of a year, that would add up pretty quick, especially if you're buying a game every single month. Now, there are certain subscription services that can give you, what you're looking for. Something like Game Pass Ultimate is an easy suggestion because Xbox Game Studio games, their first-party titles, always appear day one on Game Pass at no extra charge. They also often partner with third-party developers and publishers to get their games on Game Pass day one as well. Now, that doesn't really help you unless you're on an Xbox, obviously, so some other alternatives are actually subscription services like GameFly. Now, while you will have to wait probably a few days after the game releases to be able to get a copy, at the end of the day, GameFly is something I know very many people use, even just in my own little community that I have. It's surprising. I never really considered GameFly myself, but it's a really good way to get your hands on games, if you're just looking to play them. With GameFly, you can get the game, try it out, return it, get a different one, or you can buy it usually at a good little discount. Now, another thing I recommend on top of the waiting 1 month thing is sometimes you don't even have to wait a month to get the game cheaper, because there are people that will buy the game day one, beat it, and then sell it on eBay. So eBay is a really good place too to find games for pretty cheap. Now, obviously, if all you're playing are free-to-play titles, then your question is answered. You don't have to spend any money to keep enjoying the games or get into the games that you are interested in. And if you are looking to, let's say, collect games or buy older games that have come and gone, well, again, that really just comes up to what games you're interested in getting and where you're going to buy them from. If you're trying to stay local, your selection might be a little more limited, and for that reason, it may also be a little more expensive. Now, I personally buy my games from eBay majority of the time. I do have a couple of local retro game stores that I like to shop around at, but I'm at an advantage because I'm in a bigger area, so they're often competing with each other. but usually their prices are not much better than eBay. Sometimes a little more expensive just because, I can buy it then there and look at it in person, and they know that. They know the value that they're bringing as a, brick and mortar retro game store. One final thing I think to note down is GameStop is a really good place to go because just this last weekend they actually had a 4 for $20 and a 4 for $40 deal where if you bought 4 games at $10 or under, you'd get them all for $20. And if you bought 4 games all $20 or under, you would get them for $40. So when it comes to the kind of games you're playing and saving money, that one just really comes down to your due diligence and doing proper research and looking out for sales. I think the most important thing, though, again, is waiting for games to go on sale. If you can do that, you're going to immediately save some money. You might have to wait a while, but you will eventually get that game regardless. And unless it's some online service game that you need to play online with people to really enjoy, or there's events happening in the game that will only happen during this period of time, I think it's pretty easy to sit there and say, hey, I don't really need to play Final Fantasy 16 right now. I can probably wait until it's a $5 game like Final Fantasy 15 is right now. The third strategy I think to take advantage of is, again, your subscription versus ownership or renting, right? I think there are a lot of people that, unless, again, you're looking to collect, it may not be the best situation for you because, again, it is an expensive hobby. And we talk about doing this on a budget. If you're working on a fixed income, if you're working on, maybe you're a teenager working on an allowance, you may just have to save money. And that's probably the answer you didn't want to hear. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. If you save money, eventually you'll get to buy whatever it is you want. But the point is if you're not completely interested in owning the games, or at the end of the day just don't really care either way and you just want to be able to play the games, I really recommend looking into a subscription service. I think it's really important now more than ever to keep your options open. Yes, it would be nice to own the game, but let's be honest, digitally owning it isn't a forever thing. Nintendo's proven that to us time and time again. And while there is some hope on the horizon for the Switch going into the next system, that our digital purchases will be respected by Nintendo, that's still just all in the water and we don't know anything about that. As I've stated in other videos, Xbox is really the console to have if you're looking at a digital library because they have the most respect for it as of now. That could change, of course, and Sony's been doing a pretty good job. The PS4 to PS5 situation has been pretty good, but you never know how that could go out in the future. And this is when it comes down to the subscription model. If you are just now getting into gaming, or maybe you missed an entire generation of gaming and you're trying to get back into it, whatever the case may be, a subscription service might be the best way to go, regardless if it's PS Plus, Extra, or Premium, whether it's Xbox Game Pass, Ultimate, or even GameFly. I think the most important thing at the end of the day, if you're worried about your wallet, is to make sure that you are getting your games for as cheap as possible. And you're at a huge advantage if you don't care whether you own it or not, as long as you got to experience it. There are many people nowadays that go see a movie one time in theaters and then never see it again, right? So if that's okay, or we'll just go ahead and watch it again on Netflix when it comes around, what's wrong with that? There's no reason you can't do the same thing with video games. Anyway, I hope that I was able to answer some questions. If you have any further questions or, anything specific to your situation, I would love to help you out, give you my advice, whatever. Hit me in the comments below. I will definitely respond to you. I respond to every comment I get, or at least I do my best to. With that said, I also want to remind you, if you're a subscriber or if you're not, maybe click subscribe, because every Friday around noon, we do a live stream where we just chit chat about news happening that week. We play a game as a community, and we just kind of talk about a certain subject that we all voted on in the polls. So subscribing is the best way to be a part of all that and join our community and be a part of something really chill, really fun. Also, I upload every Monday. Bye.